Hello and welcome. My name is Lexi, and here I like to talk about luxury beauty. Today we have a bunch of new releases that we are going to be talking about. So I'm going to talk about them while I show you little demos. I do have multiple demos for some of the items like the eyeshadow palette and so forth. But first, let's go ahead and get started off with this sample that I have of the Yves Saint Laurent new Glow in Balm. So this is part of the new series, the NU. So I put this on my face. First, I had the Surratt Perfectionist primer on to mattify my sunscreen, and I put this on the high points of my cheeks. You can see it's kind of like a little highlighting balm. You can use this more as a glow primer. You could use this on top as a, as a highlighting balm and so forth as well. But I personally prefer to use this underneath. This is not the first time that I've used this, and it dries down sort of. It doesn't 100% dry down, but it dries down enough. If you use this on the top of your face, it dries down enough so that, it's not like a balmy or sticky texture per se. It just feels like it's sort of like, when you use like a hand lotion that doesn't completely like sink in, you get a little bit of that feeling. So the texture of this is more like a lotion, and that's really what it feels like. So it's really great, in my opinion, underneath makeup. I personally only like to use it more on the cheek area. I don't typically use it all over, but if you are looking for a glowy primer, this is nice to give you a little bit of glow through your foundation or skin tint if you're using something like that, but it's not going to be over the top. It's going to be subtle. Now, I don't find this to perform like a primer in the sense of, increasing longevity of makeup, but it does work really well, and it gives you a nice moisturized feeling to your skin. I would say it like 90% of it sinks in. So it doesn't feel like greasy or anything, but you have a little bit of that like dewy feeling to your skin still. Next, we're going in with the Say Concealer, and this is the High Beam Concealer that recently came out. I've talked about this before, so we're not going to talk about this a lot. I have the lightest shade, HB1. I love this concealer more and more every day. Again, if you're somebody who is looking to cover like deep dark circles, you're not going to want to use this alone, but this does work well as, kind of like a topper to a more heavy duty concealer if you want to add a little light reflection, which can help minimize the appearance of dark circles as well. But this is not going to be like a full coverage concealer, but it really gives this nice brightening effect under the eyes. So I'm really loving this. I've been using this every day since I purchased it. And then for foundation today, I was going to try, I have a sample of the Yves Saint Laurent new Bare Look tint. Let me just show you that real quickly. I have shade 2. So I did not wear it in the video today because it's too dark for me. I think I would need the lightest shade. But you can see, just for reference, this is a little bit more like yellow peachy vibe. It's just a little bit too dark for me. You can see when you kind of smooth it out, you get a lot more of that like peachy look to it. And right here is where we have the balm, the Glow Balm from YSL. So I can still feel it there. But that's basically what it looks like when it dries down. You have a little bit of a sheen, but not much. Up here is still kind of wet in this arch, but you can see the light reflection for the rest. So it'll be subtle. Since the YSL tint is too dark, I went in with one of my favorite foundations. This is the Sicily Cushion Foundation. This is the Fido Blanc Le Cushion. This is the newer version of this that came out, I don't know, maybe 4 to 6 months ago, something like, no, it's probably like 4 months ago. Anyway, I'm using shade 00C Swan, and it's incredibly, incredibly expensive product. However, I still haven't had to flip it. I've used this a ton of times. I really love it. Coverage is a little bit more full coverage than you would typically get in a cushion foundation, and it just goes on and makes your skin look so perfect. I have to say, I really love it. If you are interested, the Las Vegas Sicily Boutique is doing their anniversary sale, which gives you 20% off for this coming weekend. So I'll leave the details for that down below in the description box. You can call and place an order if you are interested. And then typically the Sicily online website will have like a 20% off shortly thereafter, shortly after the anniversary sale for the boutique. So just a heads up, if you're looking for it, you might want to wait for a sale. But I have to say, I've been using this for a long time, and it's been really hard for me to recommend it just because it's so expensive. And typically for me, cushion foundations don't last that long, meaning like the actual amount of product that you get doesn't last that long. But considering I've used this now for a couple of months and I still have not had to flip the cushion, I'm very impressed. And the actual appearance on the skin, I mean, you can see up close, it's just stunning. It's a gorgeous finish. So I really love this. So yeah, it's kind of my favorite foundation at the moment. And with it, I'm using the Artis Elite Oval 7 brush. This was gifted to me. I've been testing this out. They did send me 2 other brushes that are actually technically for skincare. This, you know, is kind of similar to that, but it just puts the cushion foundation on so nicely. Kind of like, this brush is kind of like a cross between a sponge and a brush because it is so dense. The bristles are not going to move a ton, so you're not really, you know, spreading your product too much, just a little bit. So I really like to use this brush more in a pouncing motion for the most part, just a little bit of you know, spreading on the skin, but mostly in a pouncing motion. I think it works beautifully for that. So I'm really enjoying this particular brush, knocking things down left and right here today. Now on top of the foundation, I did want to dust a little bit of powder on there because the foundation is pretty glowy and I want to test the Victoria Beckham highlight. So I definitely don't want to have too much shine from the foundation so you can really see what's coming from the highlight. So I'm using the Vital Press Skincare Powder from Westman Atelier. This powder is amazing. It's not your typical powder. It's not necessarily just a makeup product. It's a skincare product. You've got different ingredients in there. You don't have to use this on top of makeup. You can, but if you're just looking for, you know, something to put on top of your skincare to give it a little bit of mattification, maybe some extra skincare properties, a little evening and blurring of your skin, you know, this is a fantastic product for that. And honestly, it's expensive, but you only need a little bit. So I actually think the less you use of this, the better. You get the same effect. You don't need to, you know, spend your money using too much product on this. But I tend to actually prefer pouncing this on with a fluffy brush. So today I use the Surratt face brush to kind of just pounce on the shade Creme. And Creme is a little bit more of a neutralizing shade for the lighter range. They do have several other shades, but this one's a little bit more neutralizing for my skin tone. So it kind of tones down any redness or anything that I have, just kind of evens things out. And you can see that it gives you this soft blurred effect on your skin as well. And you don't see powder on your skin. That's the beauty of this. You know, it does not look like powder. And then I'm also using the pink bubble shade under the eyes just for a little added brightening there. And again, this will be a little bit more mattifying. So I typically don't even use the powder under the eyes, but again, I want to highlight the highlighter today and not the concealer. You can see with these powders though, even though they mattify the skin a little bit, you can still see the natural sheen come through. So it's not gonna be like a dry matte looking powder on the skin unless you use too much. You really only need a little bit to get the effect, at least that I'm going for here. And I think it just makes your skin look like you have a filter on it. That's what this powder does. It's like a product that makes you look like you're walking around with an Instagram filter on your face. Let me just swatch the powders for you briefly. This here is Creme. And when you actually touch the powder, it really feels very firm in the pan. You know, it doesn't feel like you're getting a lot of product up. And you can see, you know, it's not leaving like powder dust or anything in the pan. So that's Creme. This is Pink Bubble. And honestly, you don't need both, but I think they both have their own purpose. This is more brightening. This is more neutralizing. I think they're stunning though. I really love these powders and they are refillable. Refills are not available yet, but it is my understanding that they are intending to provide refills for this. And I believe a lot of their other products will be coming out with refills in the future as well. Their packaging is switching over to refillable packaging. Now on the cheeks, I have to say I got a few comments on this blush when I wore this in my Will I Buy It video, but I've been using this for, I think this is my 5th time using it today. So I've used this a few different ways and I'll show you a few different demos. I did try underpainting with this. I'll show you that one first here. And underpainting, essentially you want to make it like really dark underneath, put your foundation on top, and then you just have barely their color, so it looks like a natural flush coming, you know, like you're blushing instead of like you have makeup on. So I did that. I would say it's not the most effective product with that technique. I could have built it up a little bit more to see the color shine through a little bit more with that, but I think actually the balmy texture on this just makes it not ideal for that particular technique. It does work, but it's going to be even more barely there than I expected it to be. So I actually do prefer wearing this on top of foundation, and it's a really, really beautiful product. So I'll show you a swatch at the end, but if you've seen me throw up my hand, I do have a big swatch of it that was kind of letting dry. And this product, once you put it on, you can put this on with a brush or sponge or fingers. I have found that I actually do prefer the fingers. I typically prefer brushes, smaller brushes with a product like this, but I have found that with this particular one, I do prefer the fingers. It's just a little bit easier to get it exactly where you want it. And today, in today's demo, you'll see I put it on with my fingers and then I took the foundation brush. I didn't add any more product to that, but I just kind of stamped over the back end of it to kind of make it like blend in a little bit more with the skin and look a little bit more natural. And then I just topped a little bit more on the apple area of my cheeks to get a little bit more pronounced color right there. And I think that's my favorite way to apply this. But using it with a brush also works. It's just, this is a balmy texture. Now, when you squeeze this out, this is actually a thick product. So when you squeeze it out, you'll see on my hand, you know, that it's kind of thick. You want to spread it out. It will warm up though. This is a product that if you just squeeze it out, you leave it on your hand for a little bit without touching it, the natural warmth of your skin will kind of melt the product a little bit, and then it becomes balmy, and it actually feels very similar to the YSL new Glow Primer that we used in the beginning once you spread it out. Texturally, when you squeeze them out, the Glow Balm actually feels more like a lotion, whereas this feels a little bit thicker, a little bit more of a stiff formula. But once you smooth them out onto the skin, they have a much more similar texture. I would say though that this has a slightly stickier consistency than the Glow Balm. Now, even though this feels slightly stickier, it's not really sticky. I wouldn't consider this a sticky balm, but it definitely has that balmy texture that does not dry down 100%. Now, there are only 3 shades in this. There's a red that's really beautiful. There is this berry color, New Chills, and then there's a peach. So, you know, with these more pigmented colors, obviously I don't need very much of this at all. A little bit goes a long way with this, and I don't really feel so much of the balmy texture on my cheeks. But if you're gonna pile up more, just know that it will feel a little balmy. Texturally, these most remind me of the Chanel, the Camellia products that came out at the beginning of the year. So let me just show you those. All right, so I'm just gonna show you another swatch of this, a fresh one. So this is it dried down. You can see that it's still has, you know, that's spread out and dried down. I can still feel it a little bit. This part here is wet. It's still gonna be a bit tacky. And then here's a fresh swatch of it. You can see that it has this sheen. And then when you spread it out, it gives you this really beautiful, you know, it's kind of like a fuchsia berry shade. There is pink in it, so it's gonna be cooler in tone. And then we have the Chanel Camellia products. This one's hard to read. This one here is number 6 Berry Boost. So this is the number 1 de Chanel. And I like these, but yeah, this is the berry. You can see that this berry is going to be more red versus more pink, but they're going to be pretty similar when you rub them out. And actually, I really wanted to get the YSL in the red, but the color to me looked exactly like the Chanel number 1, which I already have. So let me show you that one. So this one's number 1, Red Camellia. and I love this one. I really like this one a lot. So the YSL one looks very similar to this to me through photos. Obviously, I did not pick it up, but I just think it's a really stunning shade. And I feel like when these products are spread out, not only do they look fairly similar, but they perform pretty similarly, and texturally they feel the same way. So if you've tried these, then you'll get an idea of what the texture and finish is on the YSL balmy cheek tints, lip and cheek tints. Now you can also use the YSL on the lips, and I didn't do that. I've used it on the lips. It gives you like a nice tint. I'm not really a lip tint person. Hold on, let me wipe this off and I'll put it on for you real quickly. All right, so here's this. Now, I typically only like lip tints like lip balm lip tints that you put on with the stick form. I don't typically like to apply things like this. But here it is. Put a little bit more on. And I have to say, it's a really beautiful color on the lips. I really like it. Texturally, it feels smooth. It feels a little bit silicone-y, but not in a bad way. You know, it feels nice. I'm going to bring you in closer just so you can see a close-up of this. So let me know what you think of this as a lip tint. So my thoughts on the YSL Lip and Cheek Balmy Tint in New Chills. I have to say, I like this product. I think it's a nice product. Do I think it's the best lip and cheek product out there? No, I think it's really nice. I think it's on par with the Chanel Camellia #1 blushes, lip and cheek tints. On my lips, I have to say I prefer the YSL over the Chanel. I feel like this is a little bit thinner on the lips. I like the texture of this on the lips a little bit more. But again, I think on the cheeks and everything, they look and perform very similarly. And if you like these, I think you'll like these. So I think, yeah, I think overall it's a nice product. Moving on, we're taking a look at the new Victoria Beckham. You can see it's got a white lid on the top here. And this is the new highlighting stick. So this is actually a moisturizing highlighting balm. I actually already have it swatched here. So this is one layer and built up. So I swatched that in the demo. I'll just put a little bit more right here so you can see it. You can see that it doesn't really change as it dries down. This is going to be a balmy product. Let's go ahead and look at the demo. I'll give you a little bit of information, then we'll do a few comparisons of this. But this highlighting product uses air core pearlescent pigments. There are hollow cores that catch and reflect light from all directions, so it's supposed to perform like an infinity mirror. I have to say that this really reflects the light well. I think it's really a beautiful highlight, but I do think that because it has so much light reflection, it does emphasize the lines a little bit. And you can see that on me. You can see a little bit of the like crow's feet around my eyes. They're just a little bit more emphatic with this highlighting product. Some other key ingredients here, we've got the strawberry butter, which gives it a smooth application. And there's soft focus silica microspheres to blur pores and soften the texture. I do think it gives a little bit of a blurring performance, but I think the light reflection kind of overpowers that. There's so much light reflection that I do feel like I see my lines a little bit more. But one of the great things about this is it's considered a universal shade. The best part is it's glitter-free. So it's a glitter-free glow. This is made in Italy. This is the shade Pearl or Reflect. So this is the Reflect Stick in Pearl. And I think it's a really beautiful product. So I really like the highlighter. I just think that you need to beware if you are looking for something that does not emphasize lines. I do think that this sort of does. And again, if you're not familiar with Victoria Beckham Beauty, it is considered a clean beauty brand. It's cruelty-free and everything as well. And again, this is made in Italy. It's 5 grams. So typically these highlighting sticks are not my favorite because I usually find them to be kind of greasy on the skin. The first one that this reminded me of is the Violette FR Balm Shine, and I have the Universal Highlighter. Okay, so let's take a look. You got the Victoria Beckham there. Here is the Violet FR. You can see it's going to be a little bit more gold. I do think it's actually a little bit like peachier gold. You can see they're kind of similar in color, though they're kind of similar in sheen. Again, this is going to be glitter free as well. It's a little bit of a softer formula. The Victoria Beckham is a little firm at first, but it really softens up quickly. It becomes a little bit greasier as you're applying it, but it's not a greasy product overall. So I can still feel it. It does not set down completely. I still feel like texture of the highlighting stick, but I would have to say it's not as greasy or wet feeling on the skin as other ones. So I think the Viola FR feels a little bit oilier in texture than the Victoria Beckham. We also have the Merit Stick in Bounce. Put that right here. You can see, again, similar in color, similar amount of shine. This is a nice product, but honestly, this one feels oilier to me. It's thinner in texture, but it feels more like an oil. And this one just stays more wet on my skin. So I don't love this one because of that. I feel like it doesn't really stay where you put it all that well. And then we have the Surratt Torche Lumiere in Diamante. This is one of my favorites. You can see that, again, we're looking at a similar color. This is a little bit peachier, perhaps a little bit more pigmented with one layer versus the Victoria Beckham. This one, though, is a little bit drier in texture than any of the ones we've looked at so far. So this one, you really only need a little bit. And when you put it on, like, it kind of sinks into my skin a little bit better. So I find this formula is still one that I prefer overall. And then we also have the Guerlain Terracotta Nude. And another great product. Let's try and squeeze this in here. This is going to be a little bit more intense, and it's, I would say though, texturally, this is slightly firmer than the Victoria Beckham, but it's the closest in texture to the Victoria Beckham out of any of these here. So the Victoria Beckham, you know, with your first swipe of it, it's going to be similar in texture to this, but since the Victoria Beckham kind of melts a little bit the more you use it, it does get a little bit thinner and oilier in texture than the Guerlain, but I feel like they're closest in texture. Color-wise, though, you can see this is going to be more pigmented and just more intense overall. Now, overall thoughts for the Victoria Beckham highlight, I actually do really like it. I think it gives a really beautiful glow. I think the reflection that you get, it really is multi-directional. I think that's really beautiful. But I do think it's not something I would wear every day just because of the fine lines. So like for me, I just notice them more. So let me know what you think. Do they emphasize my lines? Next up, I did have the Viseart eye primer on my lids, but we're moving into the LH Cosmetics Daybreak palette. I was so excited to try this. LH Cosmetics is Linda Hallberg's brand. If you are not familiar with her, she is a very famous makeup artist. She lives in Sweden. This is designed in Sweden, but made in Italy. And we do have cardboard packaging. It's 9 grams. This Daybreak palette, you know, you got a mirror up here. You look at it and you're like, oh, okay. But guess what? This palette is so much prettier than it looks just like this. The colors look kind of flat like this, but let's look at some swatches here. And then we'll move on to some looks. I have several looks to show you. So these are the first 3. We have Lavender, Sky, and Silhouette. And let's move down past the palettes. So these are going to be mattes. They're pretty traditional, right? You've got kind of a dusky lavender shade. You have a little bit more of an amethyst purple, and you have like a pure black. And you can see that this black here is like a true black. You don't really see any brown in there. It's not really with a gray undertone or anything. And then we move on. We're like, okay, another kind of regular purple. When this palette's brand new, you don't see any change in color, but once you touch these, you can start to see that some of these shades are like duochromes. So this one here, we have Dew, Still, and Chili. And look at that. So in the Will I Buy It video, when everybody was asking me about the eyeshadow, I mean, it was mostly this Dew shade here. Let's put a little bit more in here. Actually, look at that. So you can see you've got like this really light lavender shade, but it has like this blue and purple reflect. It's really beautiful. And if you pair this on top of other shades, you get a much more intense color. It's stunning. Then we have Inhale, Air, and Haze. And I have to say, I mean, this haze shade, this is the color you want to buy the palette for. It's creamier. It's a little bit creamier in texture than the others. We've got Inhale here. You can see that's kind of a white gold, mostly white, but a little bit of gold. Another matte, and then look at Haze. Wow. So it's gonna be gray, a little purple, goes into this reddish brown. This is stunning on the lids. I love this. So I'm going to show you some demos where you can see these colors in action, but I mean, performance of these is fantastic. With and without primer, these do last all day without creasing. When you dip a brush into the palette, you are going to get a little bit of powder kick up, but not too much. And I actually did not experience any fallout while putting on these shadows or during wear. You know, I think they go on beautifully. They all pair beautifully. So all the shadows go on beautifully. They pair beautifully with each other and with other brands as well. You can definitely layer these to create more complex colors. And I think the biggest surprise for me were the duochromes. And I think Dew and Haze are like the best shades in this palette. I absolutely love them. And if you want to get a slightly different look with any of these, you know, just pair them up, put them on top of something else, particularly Dew, because Dew is a little bit more sheer. You can really get a different, more unique shade by mixing them with other colors. And these go on well with brushes or with fingers. You can build up the colors either way. I do think Haze, because it's a little creamier, goes on best with a finger. If you use a brush, you get a little bit more of that like brownish reddish color coming through because you're shearing it out a little bit more. But if you build it up, you can get a little bit more of that gray, and then you get the reddish color when the light hits it. So it's really beautiful. I think it's stunning. And I have to say that the mattes in here, I expected them to be perhaps a little bit dry, not as gray as the like shimmer shades. That's not true. These mattes are fantastic. You know, I can wear just the mattes in this and be very happy. I'd have to say that the quality of the mattes in here are, you know, they're top notch. I have to say this palette overall is fantastic. High quality shadows. I'm really loving this. I have a couple other Linda Hallberg palettes from the past and I've liked them, but I love this one. So, I mean, this is definitely fantastic. Now, I don't have another palette quite like this, but it did remind me a little bit of these two shades here from, this is Givenchy 9.03. Actually, we're going to do these three, this L here. And let me show you how these compare. And I mean, you can see here, they're not going to be like similar or anything exactly, but they do have a vibe that made me think of this palette. And yeah, that's kind of like, it's the one that gave me a similar vibe. This is a 9.04 from Givenchy. We're just going to take a look at this like blue purple shade here. And I'll put that one right here. And you can see it's definitely more blue than anything here. More of a blue purple. So, and this is Viseart Violette Étendue. So let's take a look at this one here and this one here. Just see how these compare. So you can see this is closest to this one here. This is going to be a little bit more intense. It's a little bit brighter, whereas this is a little bit duskier. Plus this is a matte and this one is a satin. And then this is the Tiny Marvels palette from Sydney Grace. We have the shade Scarab here. This is closest to Haze. So let me show you that. But you can see that they have kind of a similar reflect. Scarab is going to be more like green, whereas Haze is more of a pewter gray. But you can see that they both fade out to this like reddish brown shade. So overall, the Daybreak palette from LA Cosmetics, I absolutely love it. It's definitely a winner for me. Next up for brows, I use the Surratt Expressioniste Brow Gel in light brown. It's just a staple product for me. And then for mascara, I use the Kjaer Weis I'm Possible mascara. And in my Kjaer Weis video last week, I noticed that I had a little bit of smudging under the eyes, and I was wondering if it was the cream eyeshadow. I have worn this every day since then, and I've not had any smudging, flaking, or any issues with the mascara. So I do think it was that cream eyeshadow, which is just a little bit too emollient. I have to say that this mascara, I still love it. So it's a really nice mascara. One other thing I wanted to mention about the eye looks here is I did finish off today's eye look using one of the Chanel Le Cran Yeux. And I've mentioned before that I've been disappointed in these because they're a little bit drying. I have found that as mine continue to age, they just seem to feel a little bit drier on my lids, like swiping on. They're not as creamy as they were when I first got them. They seem to be drying out a little bit more every day. So just something to know. I don't recommend them. And then onto the lips, I tried some new products from LONDONTOWN. If you're familiar with LONDONTOWN, they actually are a nail polish brand. I have purchased their nail polish in the past, and they just came out with a lip collection. So I picked up everything they got. They did also bring out a clear plumping gloss. I picked that up, but I have not tried that yet. But they have 4 lip glosses. These are all pumping lip glosses, and you can feel like a little bit of peppermint oil in them. So there's a little bit of tingle, but not much. They do have a vanilla scent, and texturally, they remind me of the Pat McGrath lip glosses, the Luxe glosses. So that's what they feel like to me on the lips. That's also what they smell like to me. So they are very reminiscent of that. So there are 4 shades of this. There's also a lip balm. So this is the LONDONTOWN Smoothing Lip Balm, and I have been using this a ton. I typically don't like these squeeze tube lip balms because they usually are something that has a really thin, liquidy texture, usually a little bit oily on the lips, more Vaseline-like. So that's not my favorite. This is a little bit thicker, has a little bit more body to it. So I've found that I've been reaching for this a lot. I really like the texture on the lips. It is, you know, kind of in between a thinner balm and something that you might get in stick form. So I find it very soothing and comfortable on the lips. I've been using this one a lot. So I wanted to share this with you today because if you're looking for a great lip balm for summer, I think this is great. During the summer, I really like squeeze tubes over the stick formula because I tend to, forget mine and melt them. So I think this is a great lip balm, particularly for summer because, well, you're not really going to melt it. Onto the lip glosses. I've been wearing these. I bought these the day they came out, so it's probably been about 2 weeks or so that I've been wearing these, and I wanted to really test the formula. The first time I put them on, I was like, oh, it looks kind of frosty. I didn't really like it, although frosty lips are coming back. But the initial application, you can see here, even in the lip swatches, it might look a little frosty at first, but then it kind of sinks into the lips a little bit, and it doesn't look as, old school frosty as it does shimmery after like a minute or so. So I've found that I do really like these glosses. I think they're a nice basic gloss. They're not going to be my favorite lip gloss formula or anything like that, but these are very reasonably priced. And, I actually think they are a really nice product. I like the 4 shades. I like all 4 of the shades. My favorite, which is the one I was wearing in the beginning of the video, is the shade Posh. So I think it's a really great product. So let me just go ahead and swatch these, and we'll swatch them on this hand here. We're going to start with the lip balm just so you can kind of see the lip balm texture. You can see it's not really all that thin and oily, and you can just rub that out. And yeah, it's like a really nice texture on the lips. Let me just clean that off a little bit. I made a mess. But you can see that it's more like a stick formula that's been slightly melted down. So I really like that. Then we have the shade 101 Gossamer. I think it's 101. Yeah. Wanted to make sure it wasn't like an I or something. So this is Gossamer. I think this is a really beautiful, light, soft, peachy nude kind of shade. And you can see it does have shimmer, and the shimmer reflects slightly gold. But you can't really see any like gold glitter or anything up close. Now, when you're looking at the applicator, you can see that this side, You can see it's a little bent, so you're gonna get a lot of product here. You can use this side to kind of like define or scoop off any excess. Next, we have the shade Pixie, and this is gonna be your light shimmery pink. This is the one that I think looks the frostiest on the lips. I think it's a nice shade, but I would have to say this one's my least favorite on me. I just think it's a little bit too much of a light frosty pink for me. It's just not my favorite. And then we go to Dainty. I use Dainty a lot. This is gonna be a warmer pink here. And I really like this shade. So you can see they all have some shimmer in them. And then next up we have Posh, which is my favorite. And that's more of like a mauve rosy shade. So overall though, I really like all of these, and I purchased mine directly from the Londontown website. I haven't seen them anywhere else yet, but I think like Neiman Marcus and some of the department stores carry Londontown nail polishes. So they may start carrying the lip products as well. But I have to say, I think these are really nice. They're a great basic. And Londontown does have sales on their site. So I believe I was able to get these, I want to say like 20% off or 25% off. I don't remember. It could have been even like 15. But I definitely got them on sale on the day of the launch. So, you know, if you're looking for a nice basic lip gloss to have around, I think this is a nice alternative. Really great for throwing in your purse. And, you know, it's very similar to the Pat McGrath. So I hope this was helpful. I hope this really kind of helps you narrow down what you want to get and what you don't want to get. Fall releases, if you've seen my Will I Buy It video, you know, the fall releases are stunning. So unless something wows you, I would recommend saving for those fall releases. That's what I'm going to be doing. I have a ton of stuff from my haul recently that, you know, I'll leave that linked here at the end of this video. But that haul video, we're going to start going through some of those things, and you know, I cannot wait to dig into some of that new makeup. But yeah, so many gorgeous things today. And I would have to say they were all nice. So as for standout products today, I would have to say it's definitely the LH Cosmetics Daybreak palette. The mattes in here perform beautifully. So you can get a nice neutral, like sophisticated look with the mattes, especially since they've got some neutral looks in there, neutral colors in there. You can glam it up with some of the like duochromes and stuff in there. So I just think this is a fantastic palette, and the quality is top notch. So that's definitely my star product from this selection here. I would love if you could share your thoughts with me on the items featured here today. And I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you very soon.